It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under to full forward. Mackey's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
Big goal!
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hello and welcome to For the Love of the Game as we look back at week 11 of football action. It was another incredible weekend of football. Where were you, Matty Donald?
I was at the University Derby, Jace.
And was it as good as you expected?
Oh, it was everything that we'd hoped for and more. Two teams just going at it, hammer and tong. Really good, exciting finish in the end. Scores level the time on the last term. It had everything you wanted. It was a great day at the footy.
More on the Derby shortly. The Derby. Derby's
Derby.
It is Derby, and Derby's starting to creep in. Sorry about that. Brayden May, welcome back.
Thank you. Been biding my time in the reserves, and I'm back.
Yeah, well, you just had a few things to work on, as we say. Just it's a development move, but you've shown the right form and the right attitude, and you're back in the ones.
I am, but I'm more excited about the man we're about to speak to.
Yes, it was an incredible day. Let's get you up to speed. We're going to start with William Buck Premier Men's as usual. It was another thrill ride. 4 of the 5 matches across the weekend decided by 15 points or less. Caulfield Grammarians turned last week's last gasp heartbreak into a late winner of their own. They rolled old Brighton at Brighton Beach Oval for the first time since 2011 to continue their remarkable season revival in dramatic fashion. 8 changes to this Caulfield team coming into the game that fell at the last hurdle to the Bloods last week. The Fields took early control with a ruthlessly efficient opening quarter. Tunners won more first possession on the inside, but repeatedly punished. Caulfield kicked 4 goals 5 directly from uncharacteristic old Brighton turnover, which is usually the other way around. It's usually the Tunners that punish team for error. So it was Caulfield by 22 points at the first change. Tunners had their chance with the breeze, but they kicked 2 goals 8 for the term. So it was still Caulfield by 14 points at half-time, despite old Brighton leading the inside 50 count 33-16. They had all the territory, but Caulfield were defending grimly. 2 goals apiece in the third term. It was 17 points to Caulfield at three-quarter time, but old Brighton far from done. Cooper Dow kicked a goal. Joey Campili kicked a goal. Got it back to 4 points entering time on. The Tunners then hit the front for the first time since the 5-minute mark of the opening term when Josh Carr grabbed it out of the ruck. Joey Campili snapped up the bouncing ball, turned onto his right and kicked a lovely goal, his third of the term. So it was old Brighton by 1 point at the 27-minute mark. Caulfield could have been excused for dropping their heads, but as we've seen from Paul Sadley's team so many times this season, they've got no quit in them. And after 3 minutes, the ball was launched from a boundary throw-in on the wing to right half forward for the Fields. Archie Luffner jumped into the air. He cleverly tapped the ball on to first gamer ETHAN LAKMAN. And Ethan joins us now. Ethan, welcome to For the Love of the Game.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Well, we've set the scene for you, mate. What do you remember of this? It was the game in the balance. Ball came out of the ruck contest. It was kicked down to half forward. Up when Archie got the tap. You were streaming past. Talk us through what happened next.
Yeah, honestly, after I kicked it, it was a bit of a blur, but it did start at the boundary throw-in. We tapped it. We got the hat kick forward down the line, and I could see that my opponent was playing pretty close on me, and I could see that I wasn't going to be able to impact the ball aerially. So I sort of tried to take my man to the contest, drag him in there, and then I tried to get separation by going to the boundary. The ball fell into Archie's hands, as he said, and he tapped it forward, a perfect tap into my hands. And then I saw an empty goal, just started running, looked back to see if someone was behind me. I think
There were five guys behind you when you watched the tape.
Yeah, well, I saw a few. I just had to quickly kick it, and yeah, I'm glad it went through.
Yeah, so I pitched about a metre inside the line and took a nice bounce and through it went to put you in front. Talk us through the emotion of that. When it left your boot, did you know it was sailing through or was it a 50-50?
Well, I could see I kicked it. I knew the wind was going left to right, so I sort of pitched it at the left goalpost, but when it fell a tiny bit short, it was a very nervous wait for the bounce. But yeah, I honestly don't really remember. I just started running. I was very gassed after my celebration because I ran so hard to celebrate.
It was an incredible goal, Matty. We've watched it on the socials. If you haven't seen it, please log on to the VAFA socials and have a look at it. It was on the boundary line, right where the 45-metre arc hit the boundary. 5 blokes chasing him, flat out, kicks the goal. That's an amazing goal in any circumstance to beat Brighton at Brighton. But Ethan's a first gamer.
No, it's a remarkable story. It's got all the ingredients of one to tell the grandchildren about in generations to come. Ethan, I've got to ask, and I always do ask this question to people whenever there's a big moment or a game-winning goal, and be honest with me, how many times have you watched it back?
I will be honest, it probably has been north of about 30.
Yeah, fair enough, too.
I've not been shy to watch it.
Where does it sit on the goals you've kicked over the years, Ethan? Because you are a bit of a goal kicker.
Actually, I've been pretty fortunate to be in that same position. I think I've kicked 3 game winners in the last 12 matches or something, but that was probably in the top 2 for sure.
And you've been playing under-19 Premier, Holmesglen Under-19 Premier for Caulfield. This is your first game. And then last week we spoke to Rory Upton on the pod because he kicked the game winner after the game. So 2 weeks in a row you've had incredible finishes.
I know. Last week was crazy as well. We were down by about 5 goals with 10 minutes to go, and then Rory gets it after the siren and kicks a great goal.
Well, Ethan, obviously we touched on it. It was your first senior game. You got a goal earlier in the game as well. How'd you find the step up from under-9 footy, especially against the reigning Premier?
It was definitely a lot more physical and the game was a lot faster. I think the skills in 19s are pretty good, but obviously it was another step up to seniors. But yeah, it's just when you have the ball, you've got a lot less time to make a quick decision, and also just the physical impact is a lot stronger.
I mentioned earlier 8 changes to this team and Caulfield. It's been an incredible turnaround. The vibe around the place must be amazing. What was the emotion like? What was the message from Paul Sadlerley after the game? The first time you've knocked off the reigning champs at home since 2011.
I think it was pretty awesome in the rooms. I think everyone was just so pumped. It was also, I think, only their second time losing at their home ground in 3 years. We were speaking throughout the week of how big this game was and how much of a challenge it would be, but we knew if we played the way we wanted to and the way we spoke about throughout the week, that anything was possible. And yeah, after the game in the rooms, it was just a bit of shock, I think, and everyone was just so happy and pretty raw emotions.
Ethan, you said that once you sort of kick the goal, it's all a bit of a blur. You don't remember much of it. I sort of want to go back a little earlier, even before the game. Finding out that you're actually going to make your senior debut with Caulfield, can you remember much about how that played out and what was going through your mind in those moments?
Yeah, well, normally they announce it on the Thursday night at training, but Sats, the coach, came up to me at the end of Tuesday and told me pretty early, which was really nice. It was a bit less stressful on the Thursday training knowing I'd already been picked. But yeah, it was a fun week because it was only the second week I'd been training with them, so still learning a few names and getting around them. The culture was really good. So yeah, it was a fun week, and yeah, I was really excited to play on Saturday.
What's it done for your confidence, Ethan? Did you feel like you belonged at that level?
Yeah, well, Sats was very good at pumping me up to the group, I guess. He was highlighting what my strengths are, which just made me feel at ease. He didn't put any pressure on me. I knew if I made a mistake, he wouldn't care, and I'd just go back and do my thing and try and get to the next contest or have a good moment the next moment. So yeah, he was great for my confidence, and also the boys who made me feel very welcome and got around me straight away. Well,
the upside this week is whether or not you play in the ones or whether or not you play in the Holmesglen Under-19 Premiers. We're going to see you live on KTV either way, because that's our double header this week, Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Zavs. Huge opportunity for you guys to keep the momentum going in both competitions, whether it's the 19s or the ones. Let's just talk 19s just briefly for a moment. It's been an incredible competition. You guys are still in the mix.
Yeah, well, I think coming into the year we had pretty high expectations. We all played, most of us played together through the Caulfield Grammar APS school system. I don't think we've found our gel just yet. We've had glimpses against Bo Morris, but yeah, it's a great competition. It honestly took me by surprise how high the standard was, but I think once we get our groove on, we could be a pretty unstoppable team.
Well, Ethan, congratulations. It's an incredible, as Matty said, a memory that you'll have forever. Your first VAFA senior game, and you kicked the game winner down at Brighton. It really doesn't get much better than that. Congratulations. Best of luck this week. We look forward to watching you on KTV.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
So a wonderful performance from Caulfield and ETHAN LAKMAN, their 4th win from their last 5 starts. This plucky young lineup's become one of the stories of William Buck Premier Men's this season. They were stone motherless last after losing 4 of their first 5. They've adapted to the rigours of top-tier footy and surged when many Premier B elevation teams start to sag. We've talked about that in the depths of winter, Matty, that you can start well and then you can fade a little bit like Haileybury did last year. But Caulfield have found a second wind in the middle of the season.
No, at every juncture, they've defied the odds so far. I think after a month in, we thought, oh, they might be one of the teams that goes straight back to Prem B. But they've shown some great form since, and yeah, we're probably sort of expecting them to hit a wall at some point, but they just continue to prove us wrong, continue to pick up wins. It's been a great story so far this year.
They now find themselves 2 games clear of the drop zone, just 1 game out of the top 4, but the challenges will keep on coming, of course, in Premier Men's, as they always do. Next, it's the leading Zabs at Glen Huntly Park before the bye, then St Kevin's after the week off, and then Uni Black. So it doesn't get any easier.
No, we're going to learn a lot about this team in the next 3 weeks at either side of the bye that's coming up. And what half of the table are they sitting on? Are they one that can keep in touch with the top 4, or are they going to drift back a little bit? We're going to learn a lot in the next 3 games.
It's been a fantastic performance from the Fields. What does Paul Sadley have to say, particularly about this win? As I said, their first time winning at Brighton Beach Oval since 2011 when both teams were in Premier B.
Well, he's got good memories against Zabs. He says, aside from beating Zabs by a point when I was at OMs, it was probably the best win he's been involved in. So
that's a huge statement, isn't it?
That's a big effort, and it just goes to show like what this group can do. Especially, he said we had 8 personnel changes, as we mentioned, and they could have been pretty vulnerable, but all the best players just adapted into a winning mindset, and that being positive held them in good stead. Like, you could have gone there and thought, oh, what's going to happen, considering the record that Old Brighton has. He set up, pressure was excellent all game, and just the ability to punish on turnover. He pointed out to Tommy Williams, played a different role and had one of his best times since Sats had been there. And Hamish McInerney, Ryan Peach, Ollie Wilson, they delivered the intercept game, and Archie Lochner and Will Vesely were impressive as well.
So we're right in the middle of Tullamarine flu season when people go away over to European holidays, but once every 4 years, it's an even worse dose of Tullamarine flu when the World Cup's on. So this year, for example, with Brighton, and again, not using an excuse, Marcel Bruin didn't mention this to me when we spoke. I actually asked him directly the question. He said, of your best 30 players, how many are you missing at the moment? He said probably about 15.
Yeah, he didn't want to mention anything about the Socceroos or the World Cup, Marcel. He just wanted to talk straight up about the game, and he gave full credit to Sats and to Caulfield. They were just more desperate and produced great pressure for 120 minutes. But Old Brighton themselves were just too ordinary on the day. They executed as poorly as they had for a really
all those
long
turnovers.
time.
I mean, it's just not them, is it?
Gave away too many opportunities, particularly at Fortress Brighton, which I know they've dropped a couple of games there.
3 now.
But over the course of the last few seasons, they've been virtually unbeatable there. And then, ultimately what cost them was another breakdown in that boundary thrower there on the wing. So despite as badly as they played, the opportunity was still there for them to win, but they weren't able to make the most of their chances.
So they've lost 3 of their last 4. They've slipped from top to 4th, and now they've got a couple of challenging games coming up. They've got Uni Blacks at Melbourne Uni this week. What a game that'll be. The Blacks were the ones who broke their winning streak at Brighton earlier in the year, so that's going to be interesting. Then the bye, then Old Scotch, the rejuvenated Old Scotch at home, and Old Trinity on the road for Brighton in the weeks to come. Well, the other nail-biter of the weekend was at Scotch College. Old Scotch breathed some life back into their campaign. They came from behind at the last change and then had to hang on late to pip St Bernard's in a thrilling final quarter. The Snow Dogs cashed in early on some excellent stoppage work. They kicked 4 of the first 5 goals before the host got that uncontested game of theirs going. They responded with the last 3 goals of the term, got within a point at the first change. The Dogs around the contest continued in the second term. But again, we talk about the punishing of turnovers. They had 17 midfield turnovers in the second quarter. Did St Bernard's, just kept handing the ball back to Scotch, and it stopped their progress. However, fortunately for them, the Cards were also struggling to connect by foot. They went at just 50% by foot in the second term. So it was 3 goals apiece for the quarter. It kind of cancelled each other out. Scores were tied together at halftime. Turnover fest continued in the third term. 8 of the 9 goals for the quarter came from turnovers. St Bernard seized the initiative early. They kicked 3 goals in 5 minutes, got out to a lead. Old Scotch then reeled them back in and kept in touch at 3-quarter time. Lockie Papley kicked a long-range set-shot goal after the siren for St Bernard's to get out to 8 points up at the last change. But it was Scotch who made the move early in the last quarter. They kicked 4 goals in 5 minutes from the 3-minute mark, 2 of them coming from Will Clark, and they turned their 8-point deficit into a 16-point lead in the blink of an eye. But as they did in round 2 at the Snake Pit, Steve Alessio's men refused to go quietly. Papley ran into an open goal for an immediate response. It was back to 10 points. Then a 15-minute standoff, a stalemate. Neither team could find a goal. Cards couldn't get the winner. Dogs couldn't find the one that got them back within a kick until Mitch Hughes rose up, took a mark out of a pack, went back, slotted the goal. 4 points of difference at the 27-minute mark, but in the end, Old Scotch, very mature their last few minutes. They managed to get possession. They played a bit of controlled football, a bit of kick mark to run the time off the clock and get them a precious 4 points in the end. Kicks them again clear of the Dogs in the race to avoid relegation, draws them level on points with the Blacks and the Blood. So a fantastic game at Old Scotch, and the Cardinals just keep hanging in, get that important 4 points. But Brayden, the critical games for them just keep coming, don't they? Next up, it's another 8-point clash against the team above them, Old Haileybury. The winner will again kick a game clear of the loser in the race to avoid the drop. And then after the bye, 2 huge games against the Tunners and Scob. So that was such an important 4 points for Scotch when you look at what they've got coming up.
Yeah, exactly right. And we touched on, I think, when you were away, Jason, they were capable of doing this, picking up wins when backs are against the wall, and they're a side you don't want to play in the back half of the season, whether you are the Tunners or Scob at the top half of the ladder, because their quality is good enough. And Natty, the great man, touched on the players have shown such great growth in such a short amount of time, and they're learning in a different situation. The last few years, they've been up the top. They've been contenders. Obviously, last year they came with a rush, but he named players like Ned McMillan, Ben Ferguson, Robbie Beckworth, to name a few. Said they've shown real character and resilience to guide their way through senior footy, something that they're not used to. It does take that 20 or 30 games of senior football to play through. He said the moments like these will hold them in good stead, especially that composure that they showed. They didn't panic when St Bernard's kicked clear, and in summary, he just said it was a great game of footy where it could have gone either way.
Angus Jones, their big V rep, to return from a hamstring injury this week as they start to get some numbers back. St Bernard's, Matty, now find themselves outright bottom, but the good news is the next 3 teams are just 1 game ahead of them, so they're still very much in the race to escape relegation, but they've just got to start finding a few wins on the way home. Their next few starts, though, just reinforce how difficult it is in Premier Men's. The white-hot Scob, then a must-win against Uni Blacks, and then the league leaders at the Snake Pit. So that's what's ahead of St Bernard's. What did Steve Alessio have to say at the college?
Yeah, so he said it was a game that had a lot of good contests and momentum shifts, and we saw that in the score warmer, which just swing throughout the game. And there was ultimately going to come down to which team could minimise turnovers and make the most of their opportunities. And they had their chances in that last quarter, St Bernard's, but unfortunately they weren't able to capitalise on them. They fought really hard and played the game right out until the final siren. So the effort and the pressure couldn't be faulted from Steve Alessio's perspective, but the composure and the ability to make the most of their opportunities did let them down at the end. And that could be pretty pivotal between now and season 10. But as you said, this relegation race is far from over.
Yeah, absolutely. It was another compelling Uni derby. I prefer derby, but I started saying derby for some reason. It snuck in.
I'm a derby
It's the
man.
Western Australian one. It's definitely a derby, but somehow the derby from over in the Perth has sort of managed to infiltrate.
Yes.
I don't think that's a good thing either. I think it's a derby.
Yeah, it's definitely a derby. A Uni derby, I apologise. Wipe that from the tape, Liv. Thanks very much. Uni Blues posted their 5th straight win, but only, Matty, after a final quarter scare from a persistent Uni Blacks. You're at this game. The Blues jumped out of the gates nicely. They kicked the only 3 goals of the opening term. They were 20 points up at quarter time, and it was based largely on their intercept game. The Blacks won more of the inside ball early, but 22 turnovers to 15 cost them all 3 goals early. The Blues just pounced on their errors.
Yeah, no, it was a quarter of real efficiency from the Blues. It was actually pretty even in terms of the balance of play, but Blues made the most of their opportunities in the first term. There wasn't a discernible breeze, but there was certainly a scoring end throughout the course of the afternoon. And as you'll get to, we'll see a lot of goals were kicked to the right of where we were sitting on the pavilion end in across the course of the match, and 3 goals to nil in the opening term set the game up for the Blues.
Dale Bauer side, the Blacks found its rhythm in the second term. They cleaned up their ball use. Their kicking efficiency went, I think, from 58 to 81% in the second term, and they responded with 4 goals to 1. Got it back within 2 points at the major break. It was a good response.
Yeah, it was, and they really needed to show that response if they wanted to keep in touch with the top 4 and really make a late push for a final spot. They had to respond, and we knew that they would. We know the derby is always a really hotly contested affair, and there's not much given between the two sides, so it was a good response, and it set up a really good second half with more swings.
The 2 teams went goal for goal midway through that third quarter. Then a couple of late goals to the Blues. Charlie Cotter and James Stewart saw them suddenly jump out to a 4-goal lead. It was almost by stealth. The game felt so close, and they got those 2 late goals, and before you knew it, in the blink of an eye, they were 4 goals up at 3/4 time.
I reckon heading into time on, there would have been a kick in it. I think they brought the back to within a kick. Uni Blacks, they sort of pressed again in the second or in the third term rather. But yeah, then the Blues flicked the switch again, and they got on a hurry towards the end of the term and got out to a 24-point lead, which was a game high at three-quarter time.
Yeah, but as you guys said in the coverage, it only takes a couple of goals to make it from 4 goals to 2 goals, and suddenly all the pressure's on the side that's in front. And that's exactly what happened. It was a great response from the Blacks. They kicked the first 4 goals of the final term to level the scores entering time on. And at this point, it sort of looked for all money that the Blacks were going to run away with the game. But again, as we so often see, teams that come from behind, they can catch up. But if you don't get your nose in front, sometimes you just don't quite get over the line. And that's what happened with the Blacks. They managed to get level, but the Blues then stabilised and then responded with the James Stewart goal, got them out to a 6-point lead. And then while the Blacks were throwing everything at it late, Will Furphy pounced on a defensive switch at the 31-minute mark. He released a Koch into an open goal, and just like that, it was all over. The Blues survived a nail-biter and another great derby.
Yeah, sometimes the hardest goal to kick is the one that puts you in front when you're trying to come from behind. And I reckon there was a chance when the Blacks were a couple of inches away from doing that. They just got themselves back the level pegging. I think they won the centre clearance out of the middle, and it might have been Tom Sinclair who gathered the ball in the pocket. He just couldn't keep the ball in play. He'd spun out of trouble. He got away from his man. He put the ball through, but the umpire had called the back. It had just gone out of bounds, and that would have put them a goal in front, and that wouldn't have been too far away from hitting time on the final term. And from there, who knows what would have happened. But great credit to the Blues for being able to settle the nerves and stave off the Blues and get the game back on their terms. And a good goal from Akosh there at the end, wrapping up what was a terrific game, a really, really good game of footy.
5th straight win for the Blues, the first time since 2023 they've won both derbies in a season, and it's a result that leaves the Blacks vulnerable at 3-7, just 2.5% out of the drop zone. So a huge result for both teams. For the Blues, which just protects their spot up in second spot, and for the Blacks, which leaves them vulnerable. Matty Smith, the Blues, 5 wins in a row. Things just rolling nicely for them at the moment.
Yeah, this is a game they really had to win, and Matt Smith said it was a battle of real momentum swings throughout the course of the match, which we've kind of alluded to, both teams having their turn when they were on top. They were wasteful when they had control of the game, Matt Smith thought, and they weren't able to make the most and get reward for their opportunities. And the Blacks were able to convert their chances in turn. I think when scores were level, it was 10-4 to 9-10 or something like that. So Hugo was telling me bad kicking is bad football or something along those lines. Matt Smith wanted to pay mention to Jack O'Sullivan, who was our player of the game on match of the day too. He was excellent down back, and Charlie Cotter had some big moments in the game at the other end of the ground. There's still things to work on from a Blues point of view, defensive transition and being able to stop the opposition from being able to string possession from one end of the ground to the other. So it's still not the finished product just yet, the Blues, but while they continue to win, they'll be pretty happy with that.
From a Dale Bauer and Uni Blacks perspective, what did Dale have to say?
Said it was typical of most games between these sides. I think it sums up the way it played out. It was like that. He loved their tenacity, but a few lapses cost him, and that's the difference between these two sides at the moment, as we see at either end of the ladder. He says despite being 3-7, they're still capable of playing finals football, and I think, as we'll touch on later, this type of weather suits the Blacks to a T. The contested brand, the wet, heavy grounds, and so they're going to start picking up some wins. They've proven that they can beat the quality sides. It's just a matter of not slipping away for that 15 to 20 minutes.
And that's going to be the key for them, because at 3-7, they're going to have to string together multiple wins. They did it last year. I think they won 5 in a row in the middle of the year and managed to string together and get on a run. Coming up, they've got Old Brighton at home, that massive game this week at Melbourne Uni. Then the bye, then St Bernard's at home, then Caulfield away. So again, if they start to play their best footy, the Blacks, they're 3 winnable games.
Absolutely, and they're going to have to win them because they're only sitting outside the relegation zone on percentage, 3%. Separating them, Old Haileybury and Old Scotch at the moment. So they're going to have to pick up 4 points at some stage very quickly and try to put a bit of games distance between them and the chasing pack, because if they're not careful, they could slip into that bottom 2.
And from a Blues perspective, Old Trinity away this week, then the bye, then the top 2 clash, Old Zabs at Toorak Park. Straight off the back of the bye, both teams rested up, probably both teams with some players back from overseas, and then Old Haileybury as well. So that's one to look forward to straight after the bye. Zabs and Blues, what a game that's going to be.
That's going to be an absolute thriller, and I think they're probably the top 2 at the moment. I think they're probably a class above everyone else.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic game. Speaking of Zabs, they scored an 8th straight win. They certainly didn't have it all their own way, though, against a plucky Old Haileybury at Toorak Park. Zabs took slight control of the inside game early. The Bloods pushed numbers behind the ball, though, from pretty early on, and their intercept game enabled them to repeatedly win the ball back. They forced the host into 20 midfield turnovers in the opening term alone, which they then converted into their entire score, the Bloods, of 3 goals, 1, to be dead level at the first change. So that strategy of pushing blokes behind the footy was working for the Bloods. The league leaders then tidied up their ball movement a little bit in the second term, had a heap more possession than the Bloods, but again, it was Haileybury playing effectively on the counter. It was great to see them come up with a different strategy against the best team in the competition, try something different. So despite having 36 fewer touches and two less inside 50s for the term, Haileybury were able to absorb the pressure and then kick 4 goals in 6 minutes of their own as the counterpunch worked well for them. Set Zabs back on their heels a little bit. It was Haileybury by 3 goals at half-time, and I'm sure you were looking at the around the grounds going, what's going on over there? That's a fantastic result for Haileybury to be 3 goals up at the half, and it came off the back of trying something different.
Well, thinking that and also thinking, oh, I've got another one wrong here to looking like. I sort of, was thinking a couple of different things. But, and we sort of know about this with old Haileybury, and they showed last year coming up that they're a team that's capable of upsetting the apple cart up the top of the ladder, and they've done that a couple of times again this year. But, their first half was absolutely outstanding in this match.
And we saw Trinity do a similar thing in terms of just control the footy a couple of weeks ago with a huge amount of uncontested marks. I think they might have had 50 for a quarter or something ridiculous like that. But the difference was they weren't getting the inside 50s and scoring. But as we mentioned, Haileybury managed to get Zabs on the counter and kick 4 goals in 6 minutes. They led by 3 goals at half-time. Neither team could find the middle of the goals early in the third term. It was points aplenty. And despite the territorial dominance, 18 inside 50s to 8 for the quarter, Zabs' efficiency up forward, which has been their trademark all year, continued to desert them. They just couldn't find goals, and it was all tied up as the teams headed to the final break. Another 4 behinds in a row early in the last term before Julian Ganji was held 15 metres out directly in front. He broke the deadlock, got them back out to a 10-point lead. Charlie Holmes then marked in the goal square a couple of minutes later, and his conversion proved to be the sealer. So in the end, Old Zabs won the game. It was a very hard-fought win, though. 14 points in the end, maintains their 1-game lead atop of the ladder. So from a Zabs perspective, it's great to be challenged like this, though. Great to find different ways to win. Great to be down, struggling. You're not playing your A game. You've got to win ugly. You can't just belt sides every week. What did Dan Donati make of it?
Yeah, well, he said that it was a really difficult day to navigate against Old Haileybury, who were really competitive, and that he felt the plans that they executed were a lot better than what the Zabs were able to do in the first half. But credit to his Chargers. They were able to reset a few things at halftime. They wrestled back some of the momentum in the second half. They made it really hard to be scored against. The defence was really short up. They weren't quite able to finish off the hard work at times. Took them a while to find the big sticks, but they did just about enough to get the job done at the end. So paid full credit to the way that his team were able to turn things around after half-time.
Not all losses are equal, Brayden. They are on the ladder, but in terms of what it means to a footy team, and for Guy Martin and his team to go to Toorak Park, try something different, learn some things, develop another element of their game, and push Zabs so hard. Disappointing to lose, but at the same time, some positives to take out of that.
Yeah, definitely did. And I love the insight he's given here. Super detailed. He says they did try different things. The method of their footy, just they weren't able to convert chances. He pointed to the difference in the second quarter where they converted. Last quarter they didn't, and that was the end result. He said they made it really difficult for them to use the ball, and they were pretty methodical with the footy. There was a few points in towards time on in the last quarter were right in the contest and then just gave themselves the chance, but the top class that Zabs have that you need in these sort of games pulled them away in the end. He said Darius Seckle was outstanding. Kai Turner played a great game. James Blight was fantastic. Overall, it's disappointing not to finish the job, but he's really proud of the performance, and which is fair enough, given where both sides are on the ladder.
Yeah, certainly something they can build on. Next up for Zabs, an interesting clash against a team who's rising up the ladder with a bullet. It's a visit to Caulfield to face the Fields, and that'll be our KTV doubleheader on the weekend, our Holmesglen Under 19 Premier game into the senior game. You'll see both of those live and exclusive on KTV. The Fields have won 4 of their last 5. Then the week off, the bye to prepare for that clash we just mentioned against the Blues at Toorak Park for Zabs. And despite having lost 5 of their last 6, the Bloods, as we mentioned, playing some pretty good footy at the moment, Matty. They've pushed the Blues to within a point, beaten Caulfield by a point last week, and then pushed Zabs all the way in this one. They're out of the drop zone, though, just by 0.32%. 0.32 of 1% over Old Scotch. So it's an 8-point game this week against the Cardinals, and the victor will kick a game clear of the loser heading into the bye.
Yeah, no, it feels like percentage is going to decide a few things as things sit. There's not much separating 7th, 8th and 9th. Uni Blacks, Old Haileybury and Old Scotch at the moment all got 3-7 record. Barely anything between them in terms of percentage. So it is going to come down to making the most of your opportunities. Even on days where you are getting beat, don't get beat by a lot. And if you are having days when you're on top, you really got to cash in.
Final game of the weekend proved to be a bit of a blowout. St Kevin's scored a percentage-boosting win over Old Trinity at St Kevin's College. Scob, enjoyed a healthy clearance dominance early. They effectively converted that into territory, had 19 inside 50s to 6 in the opening term, and most importantly, connected those entries and converted them into scores, 5 individual goal kickers, and they led by 26 points at the first change. However, Old Trinity rocketed back into the contest in the second term. It was some of the most exciting and effective footy they've played all season. They posted their highest scoring quarter of the entire year. They kicked 6-2 to Scobbs 3-6 and turned the inside game upside down. They kicked 4 of their 6 goals from stoppages themselves, got back within 12 points at the major break, and as the Tees headed to the rooms with their tails up, they'd kicked 4 goals in 6 minutes early in time on in that second term. And again, looking at these results around the ground, you're thinking, wow, hang on, Trinity are right in this game. But, Matty, as impressive as the fight back was from Trinity to kick those 4 in 6 minutes, the response from St Kevin's was even more so. They kicked 17 goals in the second half. 17 goals. Just think of that for a moment and sit on that number. They muscled up on the inside. They took control around the stoppages, seized the game by the scruff of the neck. Scintillating quarter of football that third term. 19 inside 50s to 4, and they kicked 8-5 to no score in the third term from 19 inside 50s. It was out to 65 points at the last change. And then they've showed this new edge to their game, St Kevin's, this year, this new level, which is the ability to really kick the floodgates open and score heavily on teams. And we know they've been based around defence for so long under Plugger, and it's worked superbly for them. 7 straight final series. They've now got Luke Marnie in there, who's working on their ball movement. They've got a different looking forward line where they can score by committee. And again, last quarter, they had 20 inside 50s to 8, but most telling, the conversion once they got it in there. Of their 20 inside 50s came 9 marks inside 50. So they were not only getting it in there, Matty, they were hitting targets, and 5 marks in the last quarter to Jacob Kajitsky inside 50 alone, and his influence continues to grow by the week. He had a huge final term. He had 9 disposals, 5 marks, kicked 5 goals himself in the final term as Scobb slammed on 9-8 to 2 behinds to run away to a 115-point win. So 20 inside 50s for 9 goals, 8 in the last quarter is extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, to score almost pretty much every time you go inside 50 is incredible efficiency. And it's sort of the one thing St Kevin's have worked really hard on. They've always been a really honest side defensively and have made you earn your wins. But now they've added some real firepower to that forward line. Kazitsky Bank was in there. They threw Callum Jones forward this week. Doug Kerr is another one who's not playing at the moment. Sam Tucker, and another one. They've got so many different options forward, all capable of kicking a big bag. And I mean, when you've got all that talent on the forward line, winning scores just like 25-22 are inevitable.
So it was St Kevin's largest win, Brayden, since they destroyed Caulfield by 155 points in round 14 of 2023. 47 scoring shots, the most they've generated since round 17 of 2017, almost a decade. And you think about all the success, as I said, 7 consecutive final series. They've looking at number 8 this year. They haven't had this many scoring shots in 9 years when they kicked 28-21 to defeat St Bede's Mentone by 157 points. Justin Kazitsky, 20 disposals, 11 marks, 8 goals. Super performance. Confirms his ability to become a genuine difference maker for Scobb come September. And as you mentioned, Jack Bent and Callum Jones both kicked 5 goals apiece. Jones with 23 disposals to go with his handful of majors. Phenomenal performance from St Kevin's.
It just goes to show the power, and we mentioned some of the names that weren't actually out there. What does it mean for opposition coaches? Who do you play on who?
Yeah.
How do you, as an individual player, how do you worry about impacting team defence, the ability to know when to come off, or do I just stay here and stay with my men? Because no doubt with Trinity, as is humanly what you do, you go into your own shell and you just think, I've just got to beat my man now. No doubt that's what happened during the second half. So I don't know what Anthony Lynch does at selection himself. Like, how do you line all these guys up in one forward line?
Nice problem to have, isn't it? So now they've got a grip on third spot. They're 1 game clear of the Tunners. They're 1 game behind the Blues in the race for the top 2. But 5 straight losses and some thumping hits to their percentage has seen Old Trinity slip 2 games out of the 4, and suddenly they're only 1 game clear of the drop zone.
Just a couple of other numbers on St Kevin's. Their 4th highest score ever. Their 4th biggest win ever.
Yeah,
it was a day of records for them at the weekend.
What does it mean for Trinity?
Well, I mean, they're after a pretty bright start to the season, they're in a bit of trouble now. As you said, they've taken a massive hit in terms of their percentage. It's one of the lower ones in the division. They've still got a record of 4 and 6 and are a game clear of the chasing pack in the relegation zone. But as I say, now that gap is they're only 1 game away. In terms of what Donald McDonald had to say, he thought they competed really well in the second quarter, worked their way back into the game. But after the break, he described that second half onslaught as like running into a steam train. It's how dominant St Kevin's were. Their running ability and the targets up forward were just way too much for Old Trinity to handle. And to be fair, I think a lot of teams would have been in a similar position. It was just unfortunate that it was the Tees who had to come up against them at the weekend. The one thing that he knows that he's got, that the Tees have got going for them in terms of their current group, is that they've got terrific resilience. And even though it's the heaviest defeat the club's had in a long time, he knows he's got players who are still capable of competing right to the end. And even though St Kevin's were just too strong, he knows that the boys have got a great amount of spirit in them. He's hoping that will hold them in good stead between now and season's end.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier. They've got Uni Blues at home this week, then the bye, then Old Haileybury, and then Old Brighton at Daily Oval as well. From a St Kevin's perspective, Plugger Lynch must have been chuffed.
Yeah, and he touched on it was the annual foundation game back at the college each year, and they always perform that group. So rival clubs maybe look at the fixture and see when you're going to play St Kevin's for foundation day. He said the start was really positive. It's an area they value. The second quarter he described as interesting. They started well, but they just weren't kicking well on the scoreboard. And he said they had some positive discussions at the break when they were challenged by Trinity in that second quarter. And again, he was just happy with an even team contribution.
Yeah, so a little bit like Zabs. It says 115 points at the end. If you didn't watch the game or you haven't sort of dug into it, you'd go, oh, gee, they just destroyed them all day. But again, Trinity kicked 4 goals in 6 minutes leading into half-time. So from a St Kevin's perspective, not only did they have a big win, but they had to fight for it. They had to work for it. They had to adjust in game. And come finals time when you're playing against the best teams, that's what you have to do. Premiership teams are the teams that can adjust best when the other team takes away whatever it is you're trying to work out. So that is Premier Men's for round 10. After the break, on for the love of the game, we'll talk Premier B. Are you thinking about pulling on the boots and having a kick in 2026? If so, we'd love to have you in the VAFA. Australia's largest senior footy competition has teams suited to all ages and experience, from under-19s to seniors. Log on to vafa.com.au, check out our club directory and find a club near you. This is For the Love of the Game. We look at our favourite, arguably, Matty's favourite, although it's a love-hate relationship, I've got to say, with you and Prem B Men's.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say, Jace. It can
you love it, it doesn't love you back.
Yeah, I think that is very much one way the affection for the competition at the moment.
Well, week to week, we were always just blown away by just how close this competition is, and you know, this again was no exception. Tipping was a bit of a nightmare once again. We'll get to that later in the segment, but I will say this for you. You're consistent.
Yes,
if you're looking for something on the tipping front, you're definitely consistent.
Ultimately what we're all striving for in this game.
Exactly right. Let's talk about round 10. And where do you want to start?
I'll start Trevor Barker Beach Oval, because we're getting into the second half of the season now, and it's when the conversation around relegation and top 4 really starts to take shape and start to become pretty critical. And for Beau Morris, who were in the relegation zone at the start of the weekend, they climbed out of it with a big win against Old Melburnians. They won by 49 points at the weekend at home. They set up the game in the opening half. They kicked 8 goals to 3 in that first stanza of play. And from there, they were never really troubled. They coasted home 14-14, 98 to 6-13, 49 in the end. Harvey Backman and Andy McCarthy each kicked 4 goals for the Sharks. So had a couple of real strong targets up forward. Lockie Templeton for the OMs was pretty solid. 27 touches, 13 clearances for him. So he tried really well and tried really hard for the OMs. But in the end of the day, the Sharks too good, and they're out of the relegation zone.
Is that a big shock to you?
Not when you really look at the percentage, because there's only 3 teams that have a percentage over 100.
But Melburnians have been going great.
That does surprise me. I think the Beau Morris win isn't as much of a shock as the OM's defeat is, because they had been in really good form.
Yeah.
They were second a couple of weeks ago. They lost to Collegians last week. Everyone's losing to Collegians at the moment. We'll talk about them shortly. But this was a bit of a shock on the road for sure.
I guess, again, as we talked about in Premier Men's, at this time of the year, there should be no such thing as a shock or an upset, really, shouldn't there, Brayden, given that most of the teams in the competition are missing up to half their regular first lineup. And that's due to the Tullamarine flu and injuries and illness and work commitments and other things.
That's exactly what happened to OMs. They were missing a lot of familiar names. Just even looking through results, and you're wondering, with no disrespect to some of the guys that come in, it's like, oh, I haven't seen you before. So it's a great opportunity for some of those guys. And I think Josh touched on in your little piece, Matty, that he had 4 debutants on the weekend, which is quite unbelievable. And I think I spoke to him as well, and he said 3 of them were still in Year 12. 1 was an under-17 kid. So that's pretty special achievement for the Sharks, and what a wealth of talent they've got to pick from.
That's a fantastic performance to have 4 debutants and win by 8 goals.
Yeah, so when we sort of say that the OMs had some unavailabilities, which they did, the Sharks did as well. As you say, they had 4 debutants in the end. But what Josh Burke was really pleased with was the leaders that stood up. Calvin Hand, Jeff Florent, these types. They were given the opportunity to lead more because they had such an experience around them and they did a tremendous job.
Yeah, this time of the year, it's just about finding wins however you can. Win ugly, win big, do whatever you got to do. Just win enough to stay, at least hold your position on the ladder or possibly improve it while other teams are struggling even more than you. Where would you like to go next?
Well, you just spoke about trying to grind out wins, and that's exactly what Old Camberwell did against Old Ivanhoe at Gordon Barnard Reserve. They came from behind to win by 15 points at the weekend. They kicked 5 of the last 6 goals of the game after not kicking a goal at all in the opening term and trailing by 13 points at half-time, 8-11-59 to 6-8-44 in the end. So really good result there for Old Camberwell. Now leaves them sitting outside the top 4 on percentage only. Old Ivanhoe still stuck in the relegation zone at this stage. They're half a game away from safety as things stand. That draw between them and Old Geelong a couple of weeks ago does feel like it's going to prove pretty pivotal by the end of the season. Sam Veach was terrific for the Wellers. He didn't stop trying. 42 touches, 15 clearances for him. Paddy Naish with 3 goals for the Hoers tried his best. But a good result for Old Camberwell. And I mean, they're another side that's just knocking on the door of the top 4. There's a few of them around there at the moment.
If there's something for consistently inconsistent, Old Ivanhoe, they'll get the photo. They've got that award. Would you believe, since round 3, they haven't had the same result 2 weeks in a row. They've gone loss, win, loss, draw, win, loss. They have not won, lost or drawn 2 weeks in a row at all since the first 3 weeks where they lost all 3.
So we tip them this week.
On the basis of that, they're a chance to win or draw.
Well, I mean, don't ask me about the tipping there, Brayden, for sure. Just go the opposite of me. In terms of what Xavier Naish had to say of Old Ivanhoe, he paid credit to Old Campbell. He thought they were really disciplined, and their hard work around the contest was ultimately the difference there. They were able to move the ball quite well, the Hoers, particularly in the first half, and that's what gave them their opportunity. But the weighted numbers in the contest eventually told at the end of the day for Old Campbell and allowed them to come away with the 4 points.
We talked about Old Geelong and what a struggle it's been for them. They won just 2 of their first 7 games, and they had that draw against Old Ivanhoe a few weeks ago, and we're saying, is this a sign that things are starting to pick up? Well, since then, they've gone bang and beaten D-La by 26 points, and then they went to Fearon Reserve and belted Willie by 57.
3 weeks ago, Old Geelong were last on the ladder. They now sit half a game outside the top 4.
That's how close it is in Prem B.
It's been quite a remarkable turnaround. The headline actor at Fearon Reserve, though, we've got to talk about Tom Gorell, who was outstanding. He's kicked 40 goals for the season, 16 more than anyone else in Premier B, and it comes off the back of 9 in this match. So we'll get to him in Ton Watch, no doubt, a bit more, but that's what set up the game. He kicked 3 in the opening term and was just unstoppable.
And as we said last week, he's the missing piece, and they were very fortunate because a few weeks ago he hurt his, I think it was his calf, and they were worried about it being an Achilles or a syndesmosis or something that was going to keep him out for an extended period of time. Fortunately, he dodged that bullet, and gee whiz, he's made all the difference for them in what's such a tight competition. As we talked about in Premier Men's, just having someone that you can kick it to, particularly in these dark, damp winter months, someone that you can that straightens you up and can kick goals for you makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, and he's, as we say, clearly been the standout forward in the competition so far. Nick Dixon was really happy with the start. 6 goals to 1 in the opening term for the OG, set it up. They won the ball around the contest and they're able to control it pretty well. And what was an unusually still day at Fearon Reserve. You don't often get that, but Old Geelong were able to make the most of it. For Williamstown coach Contisoglu, he just said that the first quarter, he agreed that that's sort of what it came down to, that they were outplayed in that opening stanza. They started okay, but once they got on top, they were able to transition the ball really well from one end to the other, and they just could not slow them down. And it's something that Seawise have got to work on because they've been notoriously slow starters in Prem B this season. They've got to rectify that very quickly.
So, Brayden, it feels like we're about to get a better handle on where Old Geelong are at. They've knocked over, had a draw with Old Ivanhoe, which isn't particularly great form given where the Hoers are at, and as I say, like they're all over the place. But the win over D-La was great form, and then to beat Willie so convincingly, we'll find out where Willie are at in the coming weeks. But I think we will with Old Geelong too. Collegians this week, and no one will expect them to knock off Collegians, but they got beaten by 94 points last time around. Let's see how they go this time around. Are they more competitive? Could they be the team that eventually is the first one to knock Collegians off, or at least put up a good showing? Then it's Bowie, Old Melburnians and Ajax. That's the next 4 games for Old Geelong. It feels like we're going to get a good handle on whether they're heading upwards or sort of sticking where they are.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I just want to touch on Tom Gorell quickly. I would say he's the find of the season in Premier B. Like to come in from Geelong Amateurs down in the AFL Bowl and Bellarine competition and light it up like this. He's still only a kid as well, which makes it so exciting. His best footy's still ahead of him. He probably doesn't realise how good he can be. But yeah, Old Geelong, they're just flying. And don't be surprised, like this weekend against Collegians. I remember last time you touched on that big margin, but the Lions had access to guys that were VFL listed. I think Orgle played and things like that and just ran them up.
That's true. They had the Footscray Footscray had the bye that week.
So if they don't have them,
memory,
and,
Brayden.
as you touched on, like, look at the weather out behind us. It's cold, it's wet. I think we're meant to get this all weekend. Stranger things have happened at this type of game, and I think the OGs, they really thrive in that contested footy, Matty.
They might have found the top 2 recruits of Premier B, because you throw Matt Harvey into that mix as well, who's having 40+ most weeks, and they're both in the Big V rep squad at the moment. They've become 2 of the best players in Prem B.
Yeah, they have been outstanding. They've got some really star players for a side that's been sitting in the bottom 2 for most of the season. But it's been a good 3 weeks from the OGs. And Tom Gurrell, we reckon he might well be the collegians of the goal kicking at the moment, given the gap between he and the rest. And on the topic of the Lions, 10 wins in a row. They remain unbeaten. A 38-point win for them over D-La Cell. D-La challenged late in the second term. They got 3 goals in time on, made the margin quite interesting at half-time, but the Lions were relatively untroubled thereafter. 16-12, 108 to 10-70 at the end. Neither team moved in terms of positions on the ladder. Collegians still 4 games clear on top of the table. D-La remain in third. They're level with 2 other teams that have a 5-5 record at this point. Geordie McKenzie was pretty happy with the basics, and he's been big on the fundamentals all season. For all the class and ability that collegians have got, it's always come back to the fundamentals. And he said that they started reasonably well, but was really disappointed with that 10-15 minute patch in the latter half of the second term that allowed D-La back into the game, but got back to the basics in the second half, executed the fundamentals, and that enabled them to finish pretty strongly in the end.
Interesting result out at Carey. Ajax 10-14-74 got the points over Old Carey 7-11-53 by 21 points. What'd you make of that?
They continue to be the story of the season. Ajax, they still remain in second place on the ladder, a 21-point win. They led by just 9 at 3/4 time, the Jackers. It was a pretty close affair all afternoon, but they kicked the first 3 goals in what was a pretty tense final term where scoring was tough to come by. 11-8-74 to 7-11-53 in the end. Jack Hart for the Jackers was probably best on ground. 20 touches and 4 goals for him. He did everything. Max Thompson for the Panthers, 26 touches and 7 clearances. So that was an interesting battle between those 2. Old Carey now just sit half a game clear of the relegation.
Yeah,
so they
I was about to ask you about them. They've lost 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, they after starting the season really well and being one of the early front runners along with Collegians, they've slipped away since, and yeah, they've fallen back into the chasing pack now, and there's not a lot of breathing space.
Let's talk about the ladder. Let's run through it. Collegians obviously sit top of the table on 40 points, 10 and zip. They're now 4 games clear of the field of Ajax second, and then a game further back to D-La, Old Melburnians and Camberwell in 5th, all on 20 points. Half a game to Old Geelong, just half a game outside the 4, as Matty mentioned. Then Beau Morris, another half game back on 16 alongside Old Carey on 16. And then to the drop zone, just that half game back to Old Ivanhoe, and then another half to Willie CYMS. We ask you every week, has your power rankings changed? Are you feeling more positive about, let's say, Old Geelong, who are on the move?
They've still got to, I think Geelong still need to show a bit more form to really crack into the top 4 in the power rankings. I think we might have sat here a couple of weeks ago and said there was a bit of a chasm starting to open up, but these teams have conspired to put paid to that very quickly indeed. When you look at the gap, I still think Collegians out on top. I don't think anyone will dispute that in terms of power rankings, they're still the team to beat. Until someone puts their hand up, I've still got to have Ajax in second by default, though. They're sitting second on the ladder, clear a game ahead of everyone else. The footy that they've played has probably been the most consistent of the entire competition outside of Collegians.
They've been the best of the rest for the longest part of the season, haven't they?
Yeah,
Ajax?
we sort of think of the teams that, you know, are in the top 4 now and were early in the season. They've had slumps and they've had peaks and troughs. Ajax haven't really had that. Still like D-La, and again, I don't think there's any shame in being beaten too much by Collegians, and there were times when they challenged, certainly. The 4th spot, I mean, it really is a tie it's a 6-team tie for.
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? OMs play Old Camberwell this week.
But there's been a few teams, and the other one is Old Geelong, who we mentioned, and there've been a few teams that have come up against Collegians and have been in good form as well. Old Melburnians had that opportunity a couple of weeks ago, and there've been others. So they've earned the right to sort of really test themselves against the best in the competition. But yeah, that I think we'll leave that to this weekend to determine 4th spot in the power rankings.
Yeah, I think now when you're winning these games, there's a difference between actually just getting the result and it being so close. But I think if you're going to win these games, you've got to win well. Because you look at someone like Old Campbell, they're sitting 5th, 5-5, percentage of 83. That's not going to sneak you into a finals. Even Old Geelong, they come up against Collegians, as we touched on. Even if they do get beaten, they can't afford to have such a
can't
big
have
loss.
another 15-goal loss.
And your percentage drops back. That draw is going to hold them in good stead one way or another as well. So, yeah, if you're losing games, you've got to try and do your best. Run it out for 4 quarters, as silly as it sounds. And if you're winning games, play out 4 quarters, because those extra 2 or 3 goals could make a world of difference in 8 weeks' time.
And on the flip side of that, you've got Bo Morris, who sits 7th, and you think, well, they're not really in the finals race at the moment, but their percentage is the 3rd best, and it's only about 1% off Ajax from being the 2nd best percentage in the league.
Might
so
be enough to
if it
get them
comes
there at
down
the
to
end.
them, that could prove to be very vital indeed.
So really, in a nutshell, we know no more about Premier B than we did this time last week, and I'm sure it'll be the same all the way through to September. This one feels like it's going to go all the way to the final round as it did last year. That is Premier B. Next up on For the Love of the Game, we'll talk Prem C Men's. That's next. The VAFA Rising Star Award recognises the competition's most talented young players. Each week, the VAFA Rising Star Committee receives nominations for 1 male and 1 female player aged 20 years or under who played no more than 7 senior games before this season. Our overall season winners will be declared the VAFA Rising Stars for 2026. So if your club has a young gun making their mark, nominate them now at media@vafa.com.au. Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It is time to talk Prem C, and a massive milestone coming up in Prem C this weekend for Pegs. Dan Flaherty, a life member of the footy club, first played for Pegs in the inaugural under-18 team back in 2000, playing primarily as a centre-half forward. He's finished runner-up in the best and fairest on 5 occasions and has been the leading goal kicker 3 times. Had to wait till 2022 to win his first senior flag, but it was well worth the wait. He's played rep football for the Big V when in C grade. He got called up to play at centre forward in the A-grade representative team that played against New South Wales here at Elstonwick Park, these days known as Revo Fitness Park. He won the President's Medal for best on ground that day, kicked 5 goals at centre-half forward. He's played Gaelic football with some other VAFA players. He's had an unbelievable career. He's also played in the VFL, the Quaffle, and over in the Perth Footy League as well. This weekend, he racks up game 350 for Pegs. Dan, congratulations. Thanks for your time, and welcome to For the Love of the Game.
Thanks, guys. It's it's a great wrap there, but appreciate the nice pump up, and I'm pretty much done now, I think, with this interview. So thank you.
I was about to say, mate, I'm exhausted just reading out your credentials. You must be exhausted. So tell us a little bit about your footy journey. Where did it all start, and how did you end up at Pegs?
Yeah. No, I finished school in 1999 and came to the club in 2000. At that stage, we didn't have an under-19s team, and a guy called John Newbold was the president back then, and his son was playing for us and at school. And he came down one lunchtime and had a chat to us at the lecture theatre and sold us a dream about sort of staying close with friends. And out of school, you'd probably go different paths in life, and it was important to stay connected with your schoolmates. And coming to play amateur football would provide that sort of option. And from there, the rest is history. We sort of got sold that dream and came down and didn't know much about the amateurs or much about the old boys, old Essendon Grammar back then. But we came down and played ever since. It was a very, very important, I suppose, time for our club to get that injection of players coming through. But 2000 was my first year at the club.
So you've been away, as I said, a few times. You played some VFL at Coburg. You've played some Quaffle. You played over in WA, but you've always come back to Pegs. That's your home.
Yeah, that's true. I did play a little bit of higher level football. I was lucky enough to play 2 years at Coburg Football Club in the VFL. I actually tried out for a couple of a spot at Richmond and a spot at Essendon over that time, but obviously didn't get picked up. But yeah, basically by that age, if you hadn't been picked up at sort of 21, 22, the AFL dream was pretty much over. And I was getting a lot of pressure from mates to come back for the old boys who were playing in B grade at the time and close to getting to A grade. And I came back, and the old man was heavily involved at the club as well. And came back in, I think, 2004. And went back to the old boys. Played a couple of years in Queensland for the Quaffle or AFLQ against Broadbeach and Southport and those sort of teams. Some really good stand the footy. Actually played against Dane Zorko back in the day. But you're obviously a handy player.
And you're both still going around.
We're both still going around. Yeah, he was a lot younger than me at the time. But I was obviously amazed that he never got picked up at that stage. You could see a young guy that was dominating for Broadbeach, and he hadn't been given the opportunity. So I think it actually took him a while for the Lions to actually pick him up. He was a very handy player back then. Yeah.
Dan, congratulations on the achievement. Phenomenal career from you. What is it about Pegs that makes the club so special? Jace mentioned that you keep finding your way back home to them sooner or later. What is it about the club that's so special for you?
I think for me, my best mates from school, we all came through the club together. So we all sort of played, 10 years plus together, and it was a great way to stay connected with them. And they're still my best friends to this very day. I think you interviewed one of my best friends, Andrew Fraser. He plays 400th game,
yeah, of course.
I think, last year. So
He's got a few blokes that have hung around for a while.
Yeah, so he really did hang around. He has hung around. So 400 games, and quite a number of other players there. My dad's heavily involved. He's still very much the lifeblood of the football club, and he sort of came through with a bunch of parents during that 2000 year and sort of stayed around with himself. So get the opportunity to see him every Saturday. Life gets pretty busy. It's great to see him. My younger brother, Liam, still plays. He actually had a stint in China with work. It came back 2 years ago, so he's still playing football as well. So I get to see him and play with him as well. But so I guess the family connection and probably the fact that my best friends were sort of playing just sort of meant that I'd always sort of come back and it was in the blood. Really, the club's sort of been there.
What can you tell us, Dan? What keeps you coming back year after year in terms of, especially after COVID, a lot of people did walk away from footy, the experience you've had, and you got that ultimate success, obviously the 2 years that were interrupted, 2022. Can you take us back to that Division 1 flag?
Yeah, COVID was definitely an interesting period, and was one that it was sort of weird having played footy for 20 odd years and not having to have that outlet, I suppose, for football. Was definitely a trying period for many. I guess I hadn't won that premiership flag, and that was sort of the back of my mind. We were sort of in D grade at the time, around that sort of that period where we normally play in C grade or in a really good year B grade. So we're in D grade. I sort of thought, geez, an opportunity here still to maybe get one, even at my age, and that kept me going, I suppose, just to chase that flag. Having played for so long, I'd lost a couple, but ultimately wanted to win that one. So that was something that kept me going. Obviously, you're right. 2022 was a D1 opportunity, where we won. And I was probably lucky that year to probably get a game, if I'm being honest. We had a really good side. I just started a new role at work. It was a little bit stressful in terms of that new role. Probably had a few habits there that probably didn't allow me at 40 years of age to play footy at the peak of my ability. And I was kind of falling away a little bit in just getting a game. I think I was lucky towards the end that I got my body right. And I think at the time, Len Hanna was coach, and I think the body of work I'd done over the years had probably given me the opportunity to still get that opportunity to play in that premiership team. And we played Old Campbell all day. I was actually on the wing as a 40-year-old. They slapped me on the wing. They found a spot for me on the wing at Sandringham. And probably wasn't my best game, but got through it. I've got now a premiership player, and got to share the opportunity with Dad. He was there as well, and a lot of my friends obviously came to the game as well. So it meant a lot to a lot of people, and it meant a lot to myself and the old man. So it was a great day.
Well, you said you were just getting a game at the age of 40. It's 4 years later. You're now 44. You'll be 45 in a couple of weeks. You're still playing seniors, though. You're playing Premier C seniors. Not only that, you're in the best players on the weekend. You're playing regular footy. Normally when blokes are at this age, they're dropping off and playing in the thirds, which is, the totally understandable, mate, but you're obviously still in good enough condition you can run around in the ones.
No, I appreciate that. It's been funny. I guess I've probably put a little bit of size on and probably played a bit more of a different role and just focus more on, I suppose, my power and I can still take a mark okay and read the play okay. So those things sort of help at this level. C grade, while it's fantastic football, some of the bigger guys probably aren't as strong as the B grade, A grade clubs, and I'll be able to get a kick still. So I'm actually sort of playing centre forward and still enjoying my football. But taking each game as it comes. Really, it's a bit of a bonus at this age to still be playing. So I'm not sure where it ends, but I'm really enjoying football still. My brother's still playing. This year's been a little bit challenging with the win-loss, but it's still a really young side that keeps me motivated and brings a lot of energy to myself. And I still love playing.
How is the body? Can you imagine life not playing footy on the weekends?
It's something I probably need to get my head around pretty soon because I have.
You got a good 15, 20 years left. You've still got the whole thirds journey to go through yet.
Yeah, true. Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see how that goes. The body's still holding up, touch wood. But yeah, I just probably being a bit smarter with the way I move and run and running patterns and so forth. And so yeah, the body's still holding up pretty well, which is great. I'm probably not running fast enough now to worry about those hamstrings, but yeah, the body's still holding up, which is great.
No one gets there alone, mate. 350 games plus all the other footy you've played. I'm sure there's lots of people you'd like to thank.
Yeah, there is. I suppose with the club, we've got a number of people that have been heavily involved with the club for a long period of time. Len Hanna, who coached that 2022 team, has been involved with the club for over 10 years now. He's still very heavily involved. My old man's very, very heavily involved and been at the club now for over 25 years plus. Dame Sarah Antonio, who's our president, he's a lot younger than I am, but he's doing a power work, keeping this club going well, and I do sort of owe a lot to him as well. To my friends that I played with over the journey, I've really enjoyed playing with them. And to my partner, I guess I should thank her as well. She's sacrifices a lot to allow me to play on a Saturday. She loves travelling and doing all those lovely things that you can't do during the footy season that has to get put on hold. I guess I do owe a lot to her and the sacrifice I do make, and can be a little bit selfish at times to play football at this level, so I do appreciate her work. I hope I haven't missed anyone, but I've really enjoyed playing with the amateurs. It's a great football association, great skillful competition. You guys talk about the love of the game, and a lot of people I play with over the years have it's all been about the love of the game. Haven't played for money, and it's been a really good, skillful competition, and I've been lucky enough to play the number of games I've played, and so we'll see where the journey takes me. But I'm still playing now and loving it still.
We look forward to your next 150 odd games, Dan. You've got at least that many left in you. Big game this week against Mazenod, who sit fourth on the ladder. You guys are fighting to stay away from the relegation zone and trying to keep your finals hopes alive, mate. Good luck. Thanks very much for your time on For the Love of the Game, and congratulations, Dan Flaherty. 350 games, magnificent performance.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
What a wonderful story, Dan Flaherty at Pegs, 350 games. And look, he described exactly what ETHAN LAKMAN earlier talked about, which is the importance of the under-19s comp in the VAFA. Play with your mates, stick together. He got sold that dream back, 25 years ago, and you have quality people like him come into your football competition. That's what you're looking for.
It's quite nice that the two guests that we've had, one is
at the start of it,
probably in the second half of his career, almost approaching the second half of his career in Dan, and then Ethan's right at the start of his senior career. But regardless of where they are in their journey, still highlighting the importance of the under-19 and the pathway to senior football. It's still so important for these clubs. And
it's great to have a women's under-19s competition going now as well, something that we can build on in the future to provide that exact same pathway to our women's players.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that age group of 18 to 19, it's such a big step. I know I've spoken to St Kevin's coach Anthony Lynch about before. They usually look at that 18 to 21 bracket as just time to develop for young boys and young girls now as well, to understand their bodies, how big they are, how to compete against fully grown adults. And the great thing is, as like Ethan touched on, he's had the opportunity, he's got a taste of it now, but if the time's right, he can go back to the 19, still play with his mates and just play where he's comfortable, enjoy it, and still enjoy your footy. And because I guess when you get to that senior age group, it's so much more serious.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, you've been with your school buddies, most of your life. And if you go and all keep playing footy together, that's at least 3 times a week that gives you an excuse to catch up, plus the social life that comes with it. Like we all know, once you've finished high school and you go off to uni or you go off to be a tradie or do whatever it is you're doing, you easily lose touch with the people that you've spent every day with for the last, sort of 6 or 7 years of your life. So playing footy together and continuing to do that is a great reason to stay together and keep your social groups intact. Well, let's go back and look at the rest of the results from Premier C in round 10. And Pegs actually had an upset loss. It was a great win for Old Peninsula. 17-16, 118 defeated Pegs. 13-13, 91 by 27 points at Harry McDonald. Hampton Rovers, great win over St Bede's. 16-11, 107 defeated the Tigers. 12-4, 76 by 31 points. Fitzroy keep on keeping on. 14-16, 100 defeated Marcelin. 3-8, 26 by 74 points. Good win for Mazenod. 11-12, 78 defeated Glenira Old McKinnon. 9-3, 57 by 21 points. And Parkdale, 100-point winners over Ormond. 21-21, 46 defeated the Monders. 7-4, 46. Quick look at the ladder. We'll flick through that in a hurry. Fitzroy, 10 and zip. Perfect record. And they are 2 games clear of Parkdale, Hampton and Mazenod. So second, third and fourth all locked together on 32 points. Then it's a 2-game gap to St Bede's on 24 and then a 3-game gap to Pegs now. So that's really opened up. So Pegs find themselves 20 points, 5 games out of the top 4. So now they're really looking downwards. And below them, they've got Marcellin and Glen Ira, 1 game behind them, as well as Old Peninsula. So right on the cusp at the moment are those 4 teams, and then Ormond on 4 points. So the relegation race in Premier C is hotting up. Let's take a look at the divisions.
We'll start with Div 1, and not too many thrillers this weekend. The closest game was at CT Barling Park, and Preston Bull Ants maintaining their unbeaten start to the season, although they were made to earn it against Paran, 10-11-71 to 8-10-58, so a 13-point win there for Preston. Parkside over Old Yarra Cobras, a 72-point win for them at Pitcher Park, 14-13-97 to 4-1-25. Q were too good for Oakley, 21-14, 140 to 11-7, 73. St Mary's Salesian getting a win on the road against UHS VU, and a big one at that. 18-12, 120 to 9-5, 59, a 61-point win there for St Mary's Salesian. And then Brunswick over Monash at Gillen Oval, 17-7, 109. Accurate kicking to 8-4, 52. The ladder, Preston Bull Ants, we mentioned, well, Fitzroy 10 and zip. Preston Bull Ants have gone one better. They're 11 and zip with a perfect record there. They're 2 games clear of Parkside, 9 and 2. Q and Paran round out the top 4. They each hold a record of 7 and 4. A game behind them, St Mary's Salesian and Oakley with a 6 and 5 record. 2 games behind them are Brunswick, who sit 4 and 6. UHS VU are half a game clear of Monash Blues at the moment, and then Old Yarra Cobras still looking for their first win of 2026.
So in Division 4 at the moment, there's a 6-way race for the top 4 and then a 4-way race to avoid relegation.
That's about it, yeah.
Yep. Let's talk Division 2.
Yeah, it was a big weekend of upsets in Division 2. Therapanola with the biggest one for mine, 13-8-86 to Powerhouse, 11-17-83.
Thriller.
So great win for the Lions. Good kicking there to win them the game. Melbourne High School Old Boys, 16-10-106, defeated Whitefriars 5-10-40 to keep their touch with the top 4 in the finals race. North Brunswick picked up their second win of the season, 14-12-96 over Canterbury, 9-7-61. So another upset there. Elstonwick, big winners, 21-24, 150 to 110-16 over Aquinas. And then rounding out the weekend was West Brunswick, 13-11-89 to 8-8-56 against South Melbourne. And touching on the ladder, and it's getting very, very tight here. At the top, 1 and 2, Powerhouse and Whitefriars at 8 and 3. A game further back, Elstonwick, Canterbury, Melbourne High School Old Boys. 2 games further back in 6th and 7th are the Magpies at West Brunswick and Therapanola. 1 game further back is South Melbourne. And then North Brunswick and Aquinas have 2 wins each on 8 points.
So the top 7 teams still in the mix for finals in that one, and the bottom 3 teams trying to avoid relegation in Division 2. Let's take a quick look at Division 3 men's. A couple of games across the weekend. Richmond Central, big winners over Albert Park. They won by 90 points, 21-8, 134, defeated Albert Park, 6-8, 44. And in the other game, it was a close one. Latrobe University, 12-18, 90, 2-goal winners over Hawthorn, 11-12, 78. And the ladder there is Waddle Park, 1 game clear of Richmond, and then a big gap, 3 games to Hawthorn, another couple of games to Latrobe and Albert Park on the bottom. That is it for our men's divisional competition. Next up on For the Love of the Game, we're going to talk VAFA Women's. That's next. Looking for VAFA updates on the go? Download the brand new VAFA app today. Get live scores, fixtures, ladders, and all the latest VAFA news right at your fingertips. Whether you're a player, supporter, or just love local footy, the VAFA app keeps you in the game. Search VAFA in your app store and download it now. This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk the VAFA women's competition. We have just got through round 10 of action. And Caulfield Grammarians, who have been leading the field, and last year, to be honest, Matty, were probably the favourites. They finished minor premiers and got beaten in the end by Scotch and went back-to-back. But this year, Caulfield and Scotch both making a statement. They've cleared out on the rest of the field, and Caulfield over the weekend made a very big statement at Andrew Park Pavilion against Westbourne. 7-11-53. Westbourne didn't score, so a 53-point win there for Caulfield. Old Scotch kept on keeping on as well. 5-4-34 defeated West Brunswick 2-3-15. 19 points in the end, the result at Scotch College on the main oval. A tight one at Q. Rachel Toos kicked a goal right at the death for Q. It was an amazing goal. Weaved through the pack. It's on VAFA socials if you want to take a look. It is a fantastic goal. It might have even been our GYG highlight of the week. 5-3-33 Q defeated Old Geelong 4-6-30 at Como Park. So a 3-point win for Q. Wonderful performance. Lovely goal to win the game for Q. And Old Brighton, 8-7-55, defeated St Kevin's 7-5-47. 8 points the margin in the end at St Kevin's College. And Scob, one of the stories of the year, no Tom Purcell, Jamie Pye's taken over. They've had a big changeover in personnel as well. And it's just part of the ever-evolving shift. They've been up for a very long time, won 3 flags in a row. They've gone back into a bit of a rebuild and consolidation mode at the moment. They sit 7th on the ladder, which we check now after round 10 of action. And as I mentioned, it's Caulfield and Old Scotch who have cleared out on the field. They're both on 32 points. They're 2 games clear of Q on 24, who are a game clear of Fitzroy and West Brunswick on 20. So that goal that Q kicked to win them the game just gave them that 1 game buffer in 3rd spot over Fitzroy and West Brunswick. 1 game back to Old Brighton and St Kevin's. So St Kevin's just 1 game outside the 4, even though they sit in 7th spot. Then a game back to Geelong on 12 and Westbourne on 4 points. At the moment, it's Caulfield, Old Scotch, Q and Fitzroy. Outside the top 4 is West Brunswick on percentages. We check Prem B Women's.
Prem B, and if close finishes is what you want, then Prem B Women's was the competition for you at the weekend. 3 of the 4 games decided by 2 points or less. We'll start with the most sizable margin of all. Williamstown CYMS against Old Melburnians. Williamstown too good. 7-8-50 to 1-6-12 at Loft Reserve. And then the second biggest margin of all at the weekend was a 2-point win for Port Melbourne Chargers. Yeah, no, it was a thrashing, this one. 5-3-33 to Old Yarra Cobras. 4-7-31. Jace, if Hugo Higginbotham were here, I know exactly what he'd say.
Bad kickings, bad football.
He would indeed.
Where is Hugo, just out of interest? Just sunning himself in a thong in Bali by the pool, is he? There's a visual image you probably didn't need.
Yeah, no, it didn't need that. Thanks for that, Jace, and I'm sure everyone listening appreciates that too. Old Zavarians, a 1-point win over Parkside, 6-6-42 to 6-5-41 at Basel Reserve. And how about this? Bo Morris was sitting top of the table going into it, pushed all the way by Glen Ira Old McKinnon. In the end, they won by a point, 4-5-29 to 4-4-28 at Packer Park. The Sharks just getting the job done and maintaining their stranglehold on top spot. Their unbeaten start to the season as well.
And Bowie beats Old Zabs by 2 points a couple of weeks ago, so they've become the mistresses of the close finish.
They have indeed. Their percentage wouldn't suggest that, though, sitting at 226 comfortably the best in the competition. There's 3 games behind them, Old Melburnians with a 7-3 record, and then there's 2-game gap between them and Williamstown CYMS, Old Zavarians, and Port Melbourne Chargers, who all have a 5-5 record, all separated by percentage alone. 1 game behind them is Parkside. Their percentage pretty lowly, though, sitting at 70%. A game behind them is Glen Ira Old McKinnon, then Old Yarra Cobras rounding out the 8 with just 1 win to their name.
And we actually have some Premier B Women's live action coming up this week on VAFA Media, and it's an important game too. It's Port Melbourne Chargers against Glen Ira Old McKinnon down at JL Murphy Reserve. You can see that game live on VAFA TV from 1:55 on Saturday. And as you mentioned in the ladder, this is why it's so important. Port Melbourne sit outside the top 4 at the moment on percentage. Glen Ira a couple of games back. So an opportunity for Glen Ira, 1, to keep their finals hopes alive, and for Port Melbourne Chargers to just keep in touch with that top 4. Lose and there's a chance they drop a game off the pace.
And Port Melbourne will have to be guarded because we just saw what Glen Ira Old McKinnon can do against the very best in Bo Morris. They ran them right to the line. So if they're not careful, this is a real danger game.
It's going to be a great game. VAFA TV on Saturday, 1:55 live and free. Port Melbourne Chargers taking on Glen Ira Old McKinnon. Let's talk Div 1.
Yeah, and there was a close game here as well. Marsland survived a massive scare with a 5-3-33 to 5-2-32 win over Whitefriars. Other games, we had Old Carey 1-10-16 defeat Oakley 1-8. Ormond were big winners, 10-13-73 over Latrobe 0-3-3. And in the final game, the ladder leader Powerhouse 5-4-34 got the better of Monash Blues 1-4-10. So over to the ladder now. Powerhouse lead the way with a percentage of 235 and 8-2 record. Marsland are just behind them. Their percentage is only 124. Ormond a game further back on 28 points with 7-3, a percentage of 253%. Monash Blues make up the top 4. They've got a 2.5 game gap to Old Carey with 26 points. Old Carey are on 16 in 5th. A game further back is Whitefriars in 6th, who look as a bit of a danger side to mix up with some of these top teams on the run-in. Oakley are 7th with 2-7, and Latrobe are bottom of the ladder at 1-9.
Yeah, so a distinct top 4 there at the moment has opened up in Division 1 Women's as we take a look at Div 2 Women's Round 10 results. No real thrillers in this one. They were all pretty comfortable wins in the end. Beaumaris 4-2-26 over De La Salle 139, 17-point win to Bowie there. Richmond Central 3-6-24 defeated UHSVU, one straight goal. So Richmond Central by 18 points. Good win for Hampton Rovers, 29-point winners over MCC, 7-1-43 to 1-8-14. So MCC actually had one more scoring shot but lost by 29 points. Bad kicking's bad football, apparently. St Mary's Salesian, speaking of, 4-13-37 was okay for them because Old Camberwell only scored 3-3-21. So in the end, St Mary's Salesians, 16-point winners. Quick look at the ladder in Division 2, and it is DLAR 2 games clear on top. They are 8-2 on 32 points. 2 games clear of Beaumaris, St Mary's Salesian, Richmond Central, Old Camberwell, all on 24. So 5 teams again fighting for that. And then it's only a game back to UHSVU on 20. So even though they're in 6th spot, they're only 1 game off second. That's how tight it is in Division 2. A game further back, MCC, and then Hampton Rovers bring up the rear of the field in Div 2 as we talk Div 3.
We do 3 games this weekend, and we'll start with the ladder leaders, Parkdale Vultures, who got a win over the 2 Blue Lions, Parang Collegians, 5-7-37 to 1-1-7. Just a 30-point win for Parkdale, so we'll see what that does to their percentage and if it has dropped any further in a moment. A couple of close games, though, outside of that. Hawthorn and Old Haileybury. Hawthorn getting up by just 6 points, 5-6-36 rather to 4-6-30. My apologies. And then Old Yarra Cobras against Caulfield Grammarians, 1-6-12 to 1-1-7. The Cobras getting up by 5 points. Bad kicking is bad football, but sometimes it helps.
Yeah, sometimes it helps.
And what that does for the ladder now, well, Parkdale still out in front, 9 wins and 1 defeat from their 10 games, percentage of 591 for them. Comfortably clear of Hawthorn and Old Haileybury, who both hold 8-2 records in 2nd and 3rd position, respectively. 215% for Hawthorn and then 206% for Old Haileybury. 2 games behind them, Parang Collegians with a 6-4 record, and then the big drop-off. Caulfield and Old Yarra Cobras rounding out the top 6, each with just 1 win to their name.
Div 4.
Div 4, and we've got one of the upsets of the weekend here. North Brunswick, who were last on the ladder at the end of the weekend, 5-2-32, got the better of Aquinas, who sit 3rd. 3-9-27. Bad kicking is bad football, but that's a big upset in Division 4. Mazenod, 3-12-30, got the better of Albert Park, 1-4-10. Wattle Park, 2-1-13, got the better of Canterbury, 1-4-10. Fitzroy's third side had a big win, 7-11-53 to 5 behinds for Brunswick, so that's Fitzroy's 3rd win of the season. And then Old Zav, 6-4-40, got the better of the Muggers, 3-6-24. So some interesting results across the weekend. Mazenod still lead the way at the top of the ladder with a 7-3 record. Wattle Park actually have a 6-2-1 record, but they also have 28 points. Their percentage of 126. Aquinas and Old Zav's a game further back, and so are the Muggers at 6-4. Percentage separates all them. Aquinas is 209, whereas the Muggers in 5th are actually at 92. Albert Park and Brunswick are on 18 points apiece. Canterbury in 8th on 16, and then Fitzroy and North Brunswick are both on 12.
Division 5 women's. Elsternwick big winners 6-11-47 defeated West Brunswick 1-1-7 by 40 points. St Kevin's 2-11-23 defeated the Bull Ants 1-6-12 by 11 points. It's a great win for St Kevin's in that top of the table clash, which now sees them jump over Preston and go to half a game clear at the top of the table after 10 rounds of football. South Melbourne, 5 straight, 30 defeated Glen Ira, Old McKinnon 3-2-20. Big win for Parkside, huge for their percentage. Could have been a lot bigger too. 13 goals, 20, 98. Defeated DLAR, 1 straight kick, so 33 scoring shots to 1. Great performance from Parkside. And Ormond, 6-12-48, defeated Monash Blues 2 behind. So the ladder in Div 5, as I mentioned, St Kevin's have leapfrogged over Preston Bull Ants to lead. They're on 30 points. Half a game back is Preston, Bull Ants and Elsternwick on 28. A game and a half back to Parkside in 4th spot on 22. Another game and a half back to Ormond, West Brunswick, South Melbourne, all on 16. A couple of games back to Glen Ira, Old McKinnon on 8, and then Monash and DLAR on 4. So at the moment, the race for that top 4 in Division 5, you can probably make a case for 7 of the 10 teams at the moment are still alive. And the race certainly for the top 2 is well and truly on. That is it for VAFA Women's this week. Next, we're going to talk Holmesglen Under 19 Premier with LACHIE MOIR. That's next on For the Love of the Game. VAFA Media has risen to another level in 2026 with more live stream and radio coverage coming your way every Saturday. Enjoy our award-winning VAFA SEN Match of the Day radio call on vafa.com.au and the SEN app from 1:45. Plus a host of Premier Men's matches and our Under-19 Premier Match of the Round streaming every week on Community TV. Along with more live and free matches from Premier Men's and Premier Women's streaming on vafa.com.au than ever before. And don't forget that every game from Premier Men's, Premier B, Premier C and Premier Women's can be enjoyed on demand in full every week at vafa.com.au. Saturdays are for the VAFA. Catch the action live on the VAFA website, Community TV and the SEN app. This is For the Love of the Game as we welcome in Cench Footy.
It's good to be here. Another week, another Scotch win in the 19. So
the Scotch Whisperer.
Hang on, we're 10 seconds.
Not
into the
even,
segment.
not even about 3 seconds. Nice to have you in, mate. More on CENCH Watch and CENCH shout-outs later. We also welcome in our Holmesglen Under 19 Premier reporter, LACHIE MOIR. LACHIE, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be here again. Another Scotch win, so CENCH should be up and about.
Yes, we'll get to the tip shortly, but he had you covered once again. Let's start with Old Brighton, the reigning champs. Back-to-back losses coming into the weekend, but a bit of a statement performance against Caulfield. Old Brighton, 18-14-122, defeated the Fields 5-7-37, an 85-point win at Fortress Brighton.
Yeah, dominant win from Old Brighton, 85-point victors. One thing I will say, the scoreline doesn't tell the full story here. Caulfield came into the game with only 22 available players. They had 9 debutants from the reserves, so a big personnel issue for them. You couldn't fault the effort from Caulfield. They kept at it all day, but just unfortunately the class of Old Brighton shone through, throughout the whole 4 quarters. So big shout out to ETHAN LAKMAN as well. He's the club's 8th under-19 debutant for Caulfield. He kicked his first senior goal. Cooper Rule was full of praise for him, but Old Brighton just unfortunately too good against a pretty undermanned Caulfield outfit.
Yeah, we spoke to Ethan earlier in the show, and we mentioned that they had 8 debutants from the seniors. Well, they've got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's a remarkable result in the scenes when you factor in all that, but just goes to show how strong the under-19s depth is that they're putting together at the moment.
Uni Blues, big winners over Parkdale, 14-9-93, defeated the Vultures 7-8-50 at Crawford Oval. It's a good win for the Blues.
Yeah, another good win for them. They're starting to build some form here quietly. They absolutely jumped out of the blocks firing, kicked 7-4-46 to Parkdale's 1 goal straight. So they were 40 points up at quarter time, and that set the game up for them to win by a comfortable margin. And Nick Anderson, the Parkdale coach, just said they were all right for the 2nd, 3rd and 4th quarter, but he just wasn't really sure what happened in that first quarter. It was really unlike them. But Will Finch for them was really good again. He kicked another 4 goals. So, just a really slow start for Parkdale. And at the moment, the way Uni Blues are playing, they'll make you pay if you come out that slow. So, good to see the Uni Blues get another win, but yeah, Parkdale, just that first quarter, not sure what went on there.
3 in a row for the Blues now, Cenchy. They're within a game and a half of the top 4.
I had one of their players reach out to me on Saturday afternoon, and he told me I haven't tipped them once this year. All the guys are waiting for me to tip them, and
we'll have to wait and see until the tip segment shortly.
I had a look at who they're playing this week, and unfortunately, I won't be able to tip them.
Harsh. Hey, the thriller of the weekend, Zabs, another thriller for them, 10-13-73, defeated De La Salle 11-6-72 at Stradbroke Park by 1 point.
Yeah, another thriller. De La were better this week, and obviously Zabs is also starting to build a very nice sort of tally this year. They're up to 5th.
Well,
they've
won 3 in a row by 6 points, 1 point, and 1 point the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, a bit like Collingwood a couple of years ago in the AFL, and they just kept winning the close games. Zabs are just sort of turning into that side. They're joint 3rd now with St Kevin's, so they're going really well. 1 point victors against De La Salle, another even contest out there. So yeah, look, Zabs are just humming along nicely. The biggest margin it got to at each quarter time break was 5 points, so very even contest. And Zabs looked 10-13. Maybe could have won the game by a bit more, but they just hung in there and got it done.
And Lockie, St Kevin's, we spoke about their seniors earlier. They had a huge win. The under-19s did the same.
Yeah, another big win. Big 87-point victors. Paul Greenham, their usual head coach, was actually away this week, so Danny Gambaro stepped up to coach him. Sort of did a great job. I can't really praise him anymore. He great first half. They had a repeat inside 50s, and as we've spoken about all the time with them, their forward line is really hard to contain when they get on a run. So another big score for them. And they wanted to really show some respect for the opposition, Bo Morris, who were also similar to Caulfield, missing some of their key players, and they kept fighting out the whole game. So that's really gallant from them. But yes, St Kevin's, look, they can really put on a score when they get off the chain, and that's exactly what they did there on Saturday.
Similar story, Brayden. We talked about Bowie a little bit earlier and the players that they're missing at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. There's just so many kids getting pushed up into the senior grades at the moment. It's a great thing as well.
Yeah, great thing.
At the end of the day, they'll come back in the next few weeks when blokes come back from injury, a holiday, whatever in between, and have a real depth into the 19s. But I wanted to talk about Old Scotch.
I'm tipping you're not the only one.
Centuries boys, Lockie, a massive win, and it just changes the ladder so dramatically, and they beat the ladder leader.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're right. I thought this would have been game of the round, but Old Scotch just way too good. Speaking to Coach Hugo Borum, he said that everyone played their role for all 4 quarters, which is what he likes to see. To talk about St Bede's, they just couldn't really match the Scotch intensity from the get-go. They were sort of behind in every facet of the game. They couldn't really go with them, and that sort of reflected on the scoreboard, going down there by a hefty margin. But yeah, Old Scotch, one of the stories of the season, just keep winning and keep playing a great brand of football. But yeah, up to 4th now, Old Scotch. They're really sort of presenting themselves as a premiership contender.
I can see why Uni Blues are trying to now just subtly recruit Senchi across into their camp, because he's the difference.
He seems to have the Midas touch at the moment to Senchi. Whoever he follows, they climb up the ladder quick, smart.
Who's had a better 6 weeks, Carlton or Old Scotch 19s?
Both going well, and they've both been amazing turnarounds. It's actually a really good comparison.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Well, who has?
Oh, Old Scotch.
Old Scotch. Hey, they're going great. They're right in the mix all of a sudden. Any of those results surprise you over the weekend, Senchi?
Probably just Parkdale losing by 7 goals.
Yeah.
Thought that would have been a bit closer.
Yeah, it's a fascinating competition. It continues to deliver. Let's have a look at tips for round 11 between Lockie and Senchi. Senchi's been out in front most of the season, so he keeps telling me on a daily basis. 33-25 coming into this weekend after Sench went 4 out of 5. Lockie went 3 out of 5. Let's have a look at round 11 of Holmesglen Under 19 Premier. Senchi, it's your honour, seeing as you're in front by 8. It kicks off Saturday morning, 9:20 at Waverley Oval. It's D. LaSalle versus St Bede's Mentone Tigers.
Well, I reckon our man Hugo will be able to get to this one, so I'll go D-La.
I doubt it. He's in Bali.
He's not getting any
now,
games.
Now, I know he's committed, but he's not that committed.
Yeah, I'll stick with D-La.
You're going to stick with D-La?
Yeah, I'll stick with him.
Lockie, who do you like?
Yeah, I'll go St Bede's just to bounce back. They were disappointing on the weekend, so hopefully they can get one back here.
Also at 9:20 down at Camberwell, Old Scotch taking on Uni Blues. This is an interesting game.
Well, this is why I can't tip you.
This is almost the Sench Cup if Uni Blues have their way.
Old Scotch at home. 7 on the trot.
Yeah.
For 7 on the trot.
Do you get on board with Uni Blues if they get up here?
Yes.
Senchi?
Are these two competing for you?
I'll switch.
It's the two guys competing for the hot chick?
I'll switch over.
Our KTV game of the week is live 11:40 on Saturday morning, Glen Huntly Park. Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Zaverians. Who do you like, Senchi?
Zabs by a goal.
Yeah, they've been doing it. They're the cardiac Zabs at the moment. Yeah. Caulfield or Zabs, Lockie?
I'll take Zabs as well. Caulfield just without the players might be hard to get up.
St Kevin's versus Old Brighton. They've had a fantastic rivalry over the years, both at senior level and in under 19 Premier. This game 11:40 at St Kevin's College. Old Brighton back in form. St Kevin's already in form. Who do you like?
I'll take the home team.
You'll take St Kevin's, Lockie.
I'll go Old Brighton. I need to make up ground. So these are the games that you need to get right if I'm any hope of turning the tide.
The tactical tip and the final game of the weekend, Parkdale versus Beaumaris. Two local rivals. Is going to be a fantastic game. 2 p.m. down at Jerry Green.
Parkdale.
Okay. Parkdale for Senchi?
Yeah, Parkdale for me as well. I think they'll win at home.
Lockie, thanks for your time as always, mate. Enjoy another fantastic weekend of Holmesglen Under 19 Premier. We'll talk to you next week on For the Love of the Game.
Thanks, boys. See you soon.
Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories, and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms. This is For the Love of the Game, and it's time for one of our most popular segments, according to Senchi. He says this is the one he gets the most feedback from on social media. He's the only one who ever knows those numbers, so we're just going to take him at face value. CENCH Watch, what do you got for us?
I'd like to start with Old Geelong's Matt Harvey, recruited from Broadbeach at the start of the year, I believe. 36-3 on the weekend, which is what you call a Sacamano.
Why do we call it a Sacamano?
I don't know. Bob Sacamano's just started it. And
okay.
Yeah. He had 14 clearances as well. Just on his season, he hasn't dropped below 30 disposals once. And he's had 5 40-plus disposal games. So he's having some sort of season. He's missed one game. He's still number 1 rated for ranking points for the season, and he's 61 disposals clear of the next best player, even though he's missed one game.
Wow, he's had a phenomenal year, and he's in the Big V squad, so he'll be a huge player for the Big V Prem B to Div 3 team, which is playing Saturday, July 11. So next week, we've got one more game of club footy, and then we've got the week off for the bye, when they'll take on the Goulburn Valley along with the under-19s in a double header here at Revo Fitness Park. Matt Harvey, one of the recruits of the year. Tom Gorell, also one of the recruits of the year for Old Geelong. We talked about him a little bit earlier. We should talk about that. Let's do that next week.
Yeah,
recruits of the year.
Let's do it. Let's everyone bring someone to the table and
done. That'll be a segment next week. Let's talk recruits of the year as we look at the Big V. What else from Prem B? This is Matty's wheelhouse, but you've been all over it.
Well, I believe there was a 5v Dangerfield type situation on the weekend.
Yes, and there's been a few of these in Prem B, and we do love them. These coaches, they get the spirit of it. They don't bother with all this tagging nonsense. They just let the best go head-to-head. And it was in that match between Old Geelong and Williamstown CYMS, Archie Lazaro and Will Bockmer. Just went hammer and tong all afternoon. Lazaro, 37 touches and 17 clearances for Old Geelong. Will Bockmer, 42 touches and 13 clearances. They hogged the footy all afternoon. It was a great head-to-head battle to watch.
Love to see that, Brayden.
Was there a ruck contest, or did the umpire just say fight?
Yeah,
that's right. 30 clearances between them. That is outstanding.
Well, if you add in Matt Harvey's clearances as well, you get up to 44 between the three of them. So
no one else would have got their hands on the footy.
No, they just, as I say, they just hogged it all afternoon. Those three. It was a great contest.
Well, this week is, of course, the closing. June 30 was the close. So yesterday, the last day for getting your clearances and your transfers in. Any news?
Well, we saw Mitch Cleary joined Wattle Park last week, and he's going to play on
Great to have you on board, Mitch. Welcome to the VAFA.
He's going to play on the 18th of July, I believe, against Hampton in thirds footy. He will be joined. I'm not sure if they're going to play that exact game, but also joining Wattle Park is Mitch Robinson.
Mitch Robinson's coming in, right? He's been playing a lot of local footy in recent times.
So
a gun for hire.
He's going to finish off his season in thirds footy. Wattle Park's, I think, 2-8. I don't think they can make finals unless they go on a legacy run. And also, Kane Corns is going to put on the boots and I believe maybe just play one game with his son, who is also at Wattle Park.
Yeah, right. Okay, with Eddie at Wattle Park.
So there's potential that all three play in the same game, and
the old son-father rule.
Huge. Well, I think they've recruited every media personality except Brayden May. What's going on? Just check your phone. Is your phone on?
No, it's not. But all I want to say is, all of those signings, they're still a class below our man Cench. I'm still in awe. That's where I've actually been. I've actually been watching Cench highlights last week.
What have you learnt from watching Cench highlights?
He takes exhibition games too seriously.
Oh, well, we established this, yes. No, the charity match on the Big V weekend, he was putting in way too much effort.
Yeah, I had to tone it down in the second half.
Old Richie Vandenberg Cench. It was fantastic to see.
Our regular weekly segment, Unbeaten. How many unbeatens have we got? I think we went from 13 to 12 last week, did we? Or was it 12 to 11?
12 to 11. And we've gone from 11 to 11.
Oh, no one's dropped off. We're still at 11 unbeaten teams.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Let's talk big bags. Thanks to Sharon, the goal kickers. And you would think at this time of the year, and old grumpy pants down the end here who's saying it can't be done, guess how many double-figure hauls we had this week in the middle of winter? It was a nice day. All right, well, thanks. You've spoiled it. It's 4. you could have gone with, none.
No, I was going to say
made
none.
it sound really special.
Is that it?
4 is the answer. We had a 12 from Nick Goodman in the Oakley Under-19s. He booted 12 on the weekend.
12. Is that I wonder if that's a season high.
Just about. It'd be close. I'm just trying to think if someone's
maybe
kicked more
equal
than,
high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had 3 10s. Will McCulloch from the Swinburne thirds kicked 10. Jack Gray from the Willie CYMS thirds kicked 10. And Melvick Pambai from Monash Blues Under-19s kicked 10. That was Melvick's first game for the year, by the way. Just came out and booted a lazy 10. Hopefully for the Monash Blues Under-19s, it's not his last game for the year. He might still be on ton watch if he could do that every week. Tommy Gorell, we've mentioned a couple of times. He kicked 9, as we mentioned. He's up to 40 now for the season in Prem B, which is that 16 clear?
16.
Yeah, so he's got that, a stranglehold on that. Patrick Carricker, who's been fantastic for Therry Panola all season, he kicked another 8, so he's up to 49. More on him in a moment. Max Quinn kicked 8 for Old Zab's Premier Thirds. Johnny Wiseman for Old Zab's Seconds Thirds team also kicked 8, and 8 from Jacob Kajitsky. We talked about him earlier in the show for Scob. So 3 players kicked 7 and 9 players kicked 6 on the weekend, including Mitch Brown, which leads us seamlessly into Ton Watch. Also thanks to Sharon. 6 from Mitch takes him to 51. after 10 games, averaging 5 a game. Keep going there. That's 1890 plus a couple of finals, and he gets there. He's still on track. We love it. So he's 2 goals clear on 51. 2 goals clear of Patrick Carricker, who kicked 8, and Luca DeLello from MHSOB seniors, who kicked 6. They're both on 49. Luca DeLello would have to be up there in the recruits of the year as well, wouldn't he?
Definitely. Just a young fella seeking more senior opportunities, and he's going quite well. In a side that weren't on fire to start the year either.
Jace, you'll have to correct me. Did Joe Pignataro last year promise that he would walk out and shake the hand of
Jake Dillon? He said he was going to be the first one out.
He was going to do. He was going to do it as he kicked the. Does Central need to make a similar promise?
I think that's what you have to. You have to commit
Brown
to that.
gets there. You've got to be the first out there.
Whoever's going to kick. If someone makes the ton, you're out there.
Done.
So
Lock
51 for Mitch, not 49 for Patrick Carricker, and 49 for Luca DeLello. A bit of a gap has opened up from the top 3. On 42 goals, so a 7-goal gap. Will Hart, who kicked 3 for Old Carey under 19s, and also 42 3 goals from James Stewart from Uni Blues. So the race for the goal kicking in the Premier Men's won the difference at the moment. It's James Stewart on 42. Charlie McIsaac, who was held to 1 goal on the weekend. Good performance from Old Haileybury. He's on 41. Rogan Kitts also on 41 for Oakley. And then on 40, Tommy Gorell, who suddenly shot up with a bullet. He's on 40 now as well. And Will Snooks from Monash Blues Seniors is also on 40. In our VAFA Women's, the top 5 goal kickers separated by just 4 goals. On 25, Isabella Geetsman from Ormond. She kicked 4 on the weekend. She's now 3 goals clear of Geordie Mifsud, who kicked 1, Georgia Harris, who kicked 3, and Asher Price, who kicked 1. All 3 of those players on 22. So Geetsman on 25, 3 players on 22, and then 1 goal further back is Mia Cowan from Old Scotch, who is on 21. Tips time, gentlemen. Matty, you had a pretty good weekend, I've got to say.
Thank you, Jace.
Perfect 4 from 4 on Premier Women's.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Oh, hang on, sorry, I didn't read the next line. 1 from 5 in Premier B Men's. But 4 from 5 in Premier Men's.
Okay,
so in the end, you ended up with 9. So 9 out of 14, that's a good result.
I think it's the best weekend for me all year.
And Brayden had 10, so he still managed to knock you off. So Brayden now on 98, Matty's on 87. It's an 11-tip gap. As we come into Premier Women's Round 11, we're going to kick it off with Old Brighton versus Fitzroy, 11:40 at Brighton Beach. Brayden, you're in front, so you get the honour.
I'll go Fitzroy.
Yeah, I'm going to tip Fitzroy here too. Jace?
So Fitzroy, and Senchi?
Fitzroy.
Fitzroy across the board against the Tunners. Old Geelong versus Old Scotch, 2 p.m, Como Park.
Centre's team. So Old Scotch.
Old Scotch.
Yeah, tipping the Cardinals too in this one.
Old Geelong.
Old Geelong, the upset.
They should have won on the weekend, though.
They should have against Q, that's right. And that was a wonderful goal from Rachel Toos.
Whoa.
I
You're tipping against
Yeah,
Old Scotch?
just a bit of faith in Old Geelong this week.
Okay.
Just going to have to check his DMs from Uni.
Yeah, who are you and what have you done with Cinch?
West Brunswick versus Westbourne, 2 p.m, McAllister Oval.
Magpies for me.
Yeah, West Brunswick should win this.
West Brunswick.
West Brunswick across the board. And the final game of Premier Women's for round 11, Q versus Caulfield, 2 p.m, Victoria Park.
Caulfield should be too strong.
Yeah, Caulfield.
Caulfield across the board. St Kevin's have the bye in Premier Women's for round 11. Premier B Men's round 11. We'll kick it off with Collegians versus Old Geelong.
Collegians.
Yeah, look, Old Geelong have been in a good run of form, but tipping against Collegians at this point is a no-no. Got to go with Collegians here.
Collegians
across the board. De La Salle versus Old Carey. Now, De La Salle sitting third. Old Carey's, we've talked about, have been up and down and all over the place. Where are they this week?
D-La for me.
Yeah, this is where it starts to go wrong after the Collegians game for me. D-La.
You've been tipping Collegians superbly all year. You're the Collegians whisperer.
Yeah, no, I've got them down to a T. It's the other 9 teams I've got problems with. Collegian. D-La here.
D-La against Old Carey.
Well, I'm going to go against Matty
Yes,
for the remaining.
Just for that reason.
No, for the remaining tips. I'll go Old Carey.
It's probably a safe. It's probably a safe strategy. Bo Morris versus Willie CYMS.
Bo Morris for me.
Yeah, Bo Morris.
Williamstown.
Yep, has to be. So Bowie, and Willie.
I tip I think is going to lose just to mess with you.
Well, it's not going to help you either way, is it? OMs versus Old Camberwell. This is a very interesting game. Where are OMs at?
I'm going to go Old Camberwell.
Okay.
Yeah, no, these next two are the toughest of the weekend, I think. Old Melbourne needs to bounce back.
Old Camberwell.
Sorry, OMs.
Sorry, James.
And the final game of the weekend, Ajax versus Old Ivanhoe. We've talked about Ajax being the most consistent in the competition of the rest, aside from Collegians. And Old Ivanhoe, hard to get a handle on them for much of the year. Can they get the job done over Ajax and reignite their season again?
I'm going to back him to do it. We remember in the
okay.
first game of the year, Ajax sprung a massive surprise. I think there was a lot of absentees from the Holers that day. And, but again, I think the Jackers are starting to lose a few players as well. But I don't know what's going on at old Ivanhoe, to be honest. But I'm going to back him to right the wrongs of this season opener.
Yeah, I'm going to tip the Holers too.
Okay. Which means Jackers for you,
No,
Cenchy?
I kind of want to tip old Ivanhoe.
Okay, fair enough. Across the board. It brings us to Winning Buck Premier Men's. 4 of the 5 games covered on VAFA Media this weekend, which is fantastic news. Our SEN VAFA match of the round is at the Snake Pit from 1:45. These two gentlemen, Matty and Brayden, teaming up on SEN this week. Fantastic to see. It'll be great listening. St Bernard's versus St Kevin's. We talked about Skoll being so white hot at the moment. St Bernard's so close against Old Scotch and always a hard out at the Snake Pit. Can you raise an argument for the Dogs?
I think you could, but I just think that second half from St Kevin's is just going to click them into gear and they'll keep rolling this weekend.
Look, if St Kevin's rest 13 of their best again, Snow Dogs might have a chance, but the sort of firepower St Kevin's have got, it'd be hard to beat them. I'm going St Kevin's here.
St Kevin's.
St Kevin's across the board. Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Zabs. This is our KTV game at 1:50 on live and exclusive on KTV. Caulfield have been red hot. Old Zabs have been great all year.
Yeah, Zabs are unfortunately probably going to be a bit too good for the Fields. I think the high of last week will end pretty quickly.
Yeah, those wins are hard to back up. Are really emotional, hard-fought wins. They're always tough the following week. I'm going to go Old Zabs.
And yeah, Zabs.
Zabs across the board. Now, if we had to mount an argument for Caulfield and Haileybury had that thriller on the week a couple of weeks ago, and then Haileybury pushed Zabs all the way within a couple of goals. So you never know; it could be closer than people think. KTV, the other game live, which will be an absolute ripper at Melbourne University. This one from 1:55, live and exclusive on Community TV. If you're a News Corp subscriber, you automatically get that. You do some great work for them every week. They're great supporters of the VAFA Community TV and News Corp. It's Uni Blacks and Old Brighton. So earlier in the year, Blacks were the team that rolled Old Brighton at Fortress Brighton for the first time in 20 games. Blacks desperate for a win, but you could say the same about Old Brighton. They've dropped 3 of their last 4, and we've talked about personnel being absent. Blacks or Brighton?
Blacks to do the double, which sounds weird saying that at this time of year. I don't reckon we would have had it that way at the start of the season, but I'm going to back them to get the job done.
Cenchy loves a lock of the week. This is going to be mine. Uni Blacks are going to win this.
A lock of the week.
Old Brighton will win.
Old
Sorry,
Brighton.
Matty.
We haven't got your lock of the week yet, Cenchy, so it might still be coming.
No, it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. Okay.
Yeah.
Old Scotch versus Old Haileybury. This one live and free on VAFA TV from 1:55 from Camberwell. Old Scotch, Old Haileybury. 8-point game, this one. The winner kicks a game clear of the loser in the race to avoid relegation. Who do you like?
The Cardinals. I'm on board now.
Think
I'm
they've
backing
turned the
them
corner?
Yeah, I think that win last week gets them going.
Old Haileybury.
You like their form against Zabs, pushing them to a couple of goals at Turok Park?
Yeah, they could have very easily taken that one away. And I fall into the trap with Old Scotch a couple of times. I feel like they've turned the corner, and then the week after
They turn the corner into another corner.
Yeah, they go back again. So I'm going to go the Bloods here.
This will be my lock of the week.
This is your lock of the week.
They simply just have to win. They have Brighton, St Kevin's, Uni Blues the next 3 weeks after this. So they just have to win this game.
Who does?
Old Scotch.
I had to make him say it. It's almost an us, a we. We almost have to win. He's almost at that stage. Where's his love come from?
Old Scotch correspondent over there.
Final game of the weekend is out at Daily Oval. It's Old Trinity versus Uni Blues. We talk about teams just needing to win but having a really tough run. Trinity in a bit of a slump. If they could find a way to turn it around against Blues, their season could turn on a dime. Can they get it done, Brayden? Can you mount an argument for the Tees?
I think you can if they get that second quarter of footy going. If they get that going and the Blues get going, this might be a game of basketball, just up and down. But I think the Blues, after a tough contested game against the Blacks, they're just going to open right up, and I think they'll be too strong.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because the Blues, it was a tough game, that one last week against Blacks. Really bruising encounter.
I don't know where Dom Payman's at. You know, he's not in the side at the moment. I know he's back training. He is the difference maker. In fact, you could almost argue out of any player in Premier Men's, Tees miss Dom Payman more than any other team would miss a single player. He's their key forward. He straightens them up, kicked a ton of goals. He's been battling concussion over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they're just not the same team without him.
Yeah, and he was in the side when they were going really well at the start of the season.
He was the reason.
It is hard to go past Blues, though, but an Old Trinity upset wouldn't surprise me this weekend.
Okay, so Blues for you, but an upset possible?
Uni Blues.
Uni Blues across the board. Well, that is it for another bumper edition For the love of the game. VAFA Media this week, as we mentioned, we've got a Caulfield Zabs doubleheader on KTV starting at 11:35 with the under-19 straight through into the senior game. Plus, we've got St Bernard, St Kevin's on SEN. We've got Old Scotch, Old Haileybury live and free on VAFA TV. Also on VAFA TV, that Premier Women's game that we mentioned, Port Melbourne Chargers taking on Glen Ira, Old McKinnon. So much footy to enjoy across the weekend. Blacks and Brighton on KTV as well. We will be back next week to review it all for you and look ahead to our second Big V Saturday of the season. That's all for the love of the game.